So welcome everybody, all three of you. And thank you, Lars, for showing up and helping keeping me calm. I'll run through this fairly quickly. Oh, you know what? I have hopefully a message and picture from Moyez, who is at TDX. But he sent it to my phone and I can't pull that up here right now. I'll try and pull that up here in a second. So Moyez says to say hello to everybody. He and his wife are meeting all of my friends at TDX. I've had 4 people reach out to me and say that they've met him. And what was, I'll think of his name, somebody else, Sujay Nadkarni from, who's a regular attendee and went to work for Salesforce, was there too, so. All right, so this is me, this is everybody. I'm gonna rush through this in case I lose connection, so I'm not gonna hover over any of these slides. I did not set up a Twitter QR code for you, Steve. I am so sorry. That is usually
That's okay.
The highlight of my deck is an auto QR. It got busy, but feel free to watch or follow any of us on here. Steve, we need to get your information in here to follow. And special thanks to our Stack champions that contribute content. We're always looking for new people to own topics and bring interesting content here for everybody to interact with. Let's see, job seekers, feel free to share your information over chat. This is all old news. I did not update any of the news. The QR code is my favorite link out there. This is a calendar view of all the Trailblazer community stuff that's going on. So instead of hunting down topics, if you've got free time, you can just go, what's presented today? What's going on Saturday afternoon? You can go see all of the Trailblazer community events in a day view as opposed to searching by topic. Let's see. So we just presented, this is out on our YouTube channel. Adam Olshansky and I are doing a developer training session, kind of helping bring people who either don't have development experience or have development experience from other platforms, and trying to talk through the key places that you need to learn if you're thinking about moving into development without a development background. So that's session number 2 is out on the YouTube channel. Hopefully we'll get more of those going once I get through with all the certs I need to do. Ashmita is here. The UTD case competition went great. Prize money, I think, was split 4 ways between 4 different tiers of winners. And I think Moyez and some of the leaders in that are going to get together to try and plug the winning solution into the God's Child Project Salesforce. They run a rescue operation, helping to give food and education to underprivileged children in Ecuador. I believe I'm missing those. Moyez usually covers this part of it. Megan and Megan, neither one I have seen today. So not on the chat, so we can't get any updates from them. Let's see. I didn't hear from Wakaz. Wakaz joined the call?
No, I didn't see him, Paul.
Well, that is too bad. Okay, so no security minute from Digisec, and I will try and post the Moyez pictures here in just a second, as soon as I can send them from my phone, which is busy in the back of the room, broadcasting. So no more ado. Ame, any news or anything to?
No, not for this month. I know a lot of things are happening with, Trailhead DX and then Texas Dreaming, Northeast Dreaming. So I'm sure we have quite a few news coming up for the next month. I don't have anything else for today.
The big news I saw, let's see. God, I think this is public knowledge, but OmniScripts from Velocity, which are a decent competitor to Flows, are moving into core. I didn't say that if it's not general release yet. And then they're coming up with new badges for multiple Rangers. So there's a new double Ranger, triple Ranger, Quadra Ranger, Penta Ranger, and Deca Ranger Plus. So those are coming out. They'll give us more targets to shoot for. What was the other? Flow integration with Slack, Tableau, and there was a third one, not Einstein. MuleSoft. Yep, they're getting specific actions on MuleSoft, Tableau, and Slack. So you'll be able to directly integrate with them. So those stories about getting Slack going and communication with that are coming into focus. All right, that is all the news that I saw from the TDX tidbits that I was able to get before 3 o'clock today. Lars, did you see anything from TDX?
No.
No? Okay. Well, that's all the ado. I'll get out of your way. Steve, please take it away and give us a little bit of your background. I have barely been able to turn over stones on you beyond the "you owe me a beer" link. So dispel the mystery. I'm going to go on mute here, but we'll be able to hear you.
All right, thanks. We try and share my screen and hopefully this works better than virtual dreaming. I remember that was one of the first conferences I did when COVID hit, and I was doing my presentation, and about 20 minutes into the presentation, somebody let me know that I was still on slide 1. Hopefully we won't have a repeat of that. So let me share my screen and hopefully this will work. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. We're already off to a better start. So tell you a little bit about myself. I am a Salesforce MVP. I was part of the inaugural Salesforce MVP class back in 2010. Also a member of the Salesforce Power of Us Hub, which has been kind of merged with the Trailblazer community. That's the nonprofit Salesforce community. And I'm a one-star Trailhead Ranger. I don't know. It took me a long time to get that 100th Trailhead badge, and I don't think I'm going to be a 2, 3, or anything star Ranger in the future. I'm also a community college dropout, or as a buddy of mine used to refer to it as daycare for 18 to 24-year-olds. And I'm a self-taught Salesforce admin. I've been with the same company for about 26 years now, bounced around from department to department as an admin / developer on our own homegrown product. And we moved to other technologies and bounced from department, and then wound up working in MIS as a Lotus Domino developer. And then one day in 2003, in a team meeting, my boss announced that the sales team was going to be getting this thing called Salesforce, and it was only going to be about 25 users in the entire company. For like less than 10% of the entire company was going to be on this thing. And my boss was like, it's just going to be like password resets and that kind of stuff. So you can take it. Be like, I joked that I started off with 25 users and it was like 25 minutes a week. And now I've got 500 users and it's 500% of my time. But I think I lucked out there. I don't know what the job market is for Lotus Domino developers these days. And I'm also a world's record holder. I hold the world record for the most times a speaker at Dreamforce has said the word fuck during their presentation. The previous record was 0, held by everybody else who has ever spoken or presented at Dreamforce. And so Salesforce has told me that I need to have my own safe harbor slide now whenever I give a presentation. So there's my safe harbor slide. And I call this presentation Formulas and Life Hacks for the Everyday Admin. And it's really like, it's just a collection of formulas that I've built over the years and little tips and tricks that I've acquired through building stuff in my own org or answering someone's question on the Trailblazer community. So the first formula that I want to show you is this one. This is a formula I built to answer someone's question on this Trailblazer community. They needed a formula that would calculate the percent of business days lapsed and remaining in the current month so that they could do prorated invoicing. And this is the formula that I built. I don't actually remember when I built this thing, but it was before functions like weekday were even a thing, or add months, or the add months function wasn't even out there. And it is hands down the most complicated formula I've ever built. And next to it is, that's not fake, that thing, that's an actual Swiss Army knife. It's called a Victorinox Swiss Champ VATX. Costs $500. It's got 84 tools and it weighs almost a pound. And this is my favorite formula in the whole world. I didn't come up with this one. It's called the Power of One. It was taught to me by a guy from Salesforce named Tom Tobin, and it's my favorite formula in the whole world. I use it on every object. I use it in nearly every report and dashboard I ever built. And next to it is my favorite pocket knife. It opens bottles of beer and bottles of wine, and I use it every single day, just like the Power of One. And the formulas that I'm going to show you aren't like that train wreck prorated invoicing. I mean, how many people need to do a formula like that?
I did one
How many
close.
people-
I thought we might have actually butted heads on one of those because I had to do something that's similar. Somebody wanted the days, minutes, and seconds away from a target date. And so I sat down, and that was I think that's probably where I first got to know your name. I think we were both putting versions up in there. You've undersold yourself a little bit. I want to go back. I posted in the invite for this event, you have on answers.salesforce.com, I think you've got to be close to 450,000 answers.
Woof.
And I think at least 10% selected as best answer, which is a really good stat. But I think I've heard that you're on Stack Exchange also. Are you at the pinnacle of Stack Exchange too?
No. I still stop by Stack Exchange from time to time, but I don't know when Stack Exchange got off the ground, but that was around the time that it was like, we had just had our daughter. We were just buying our fixer-upper house, which was still very much in the fixing up stage. And so it's kind of like, I barely had time for anything outside of that. And so I kind of just like, when I did get back into things, it was just like, the Salesforce Trailblazer community and Answers was kind of like my neighborhood, my little Mr. Rogers neighborhood. I could just like walk in the door, put on my sweater, put on my slippers, and just settle in.
Well, it's amazing. Yeah, when you're Googling questions, I think Google checks Steve Mo first and then goes to the rest of the internet. So
but and it's funny though, like going back to that formula, like, I mean, formulas have evolved so much. Like if I was to rewrite this today, it would probably only be about, well, first of all, it would probably only be about 1/3 or even less the size because of new functions that have come out over the years, like the weekday function and the add months function, which are huge time savers and code savers when you're writing a formula. And also, when I built this was the biggest formula I'd ever written. First of all, I was shocked that it actually compiled. Second, I was shocked that I didn't get a syntax error. This was probably like the 500th attempt before I actually did get the thing to save. And I squeaked it in under the 5K compile size limit, which itself is no longer a thing.
you wrote this by hand and it compiled the first try?
No. God,
Oh, okay.
how many iterations?
No, okay. Yeah, I was going to call BS even on you on that one. That's not,
But yeah, the 5K compile size that is no longer a thing. It's now 15K, which is a huge, I've had formulas myself that I couldn't get in under the 5K limit, and I tried, and there was no more fat to trim. So things have evolved a lot, but I'm not going to be showing you anything like this. You know, I want to show you things like the Power One that, you know, you can use every day. One line of code, one or two functions. They reference standard fields like opportunity stage, lead status, case status, or will work on like they're transportable from opportunity stage to any pick list field or any checkbox field. I'm going to show you how to use basic math to simplify an otherwise complex formula. A formula I built in my own org to display the ultimate or top parent account in a multi-level account hierarchy for really clean and concise reports and dashboards. A little trick that I came up with for testing validation rule formula logic. Some tricks using the text function in conjunction with pick list fields, and the greatest formula ever written. So the first one I want to show you is a formula I built in response to a question by a guy named Bart Ward. And Bart, back in 2011, was trying to write a validation rule that would prevent users from moving an opportunity stage backwards. See, in his org, the stages were like milestones. A deal could only move forward to its inevitable end as either closed won or closed lost. A deal couldn't go from proposal to, you know, negotiation back to proposal. It could only move forward from proposal to negotiation to win or loss. And he actually posted his first attempt at writing this validation rule. And he was using a function called isPickVal. Now, you'll also notice that his org had quite a few opportunity stages. They were like 16 or 17 of them. And so he was using isPickVal. And I figured it out. In order to cover every possible combination of the current stage and the previously selected stage, he would have had to use over 150 if-is-pick-val statements. I guarantee he would have either hit the compile size limit or died of carpal tunnel syndrome before he got done writing that formula. So, like I said, he's using a function called isPickVal. And isPickVal is a perfectly good function. It's purpose-built to evaluate a pick list field, look for a value that you provide, and if it finds that value has been selected, it performs an action or returns a result that you define. But it's not the most efficient function in the Salesforce tool belt. You know, it's like having an Alexa and having to ask Alexa, Alexa, are there zombies outside? Alexa, is it hot outside? Alexa, is it warm outside? Alexa, is it raining? Alexa, is it snowing? So there's another function out there that's a lot like isPickVal, but it's also a lot more flexible, and it's called case. This is something I should point out because this leads to some confusion when I bring it up in the Answers community. The function is called case. It has absolutely nothing to do with the case object. Some people see a function called case and they instinctively think they can't use it on the opportunity or the lead or whatever. It's just what the function is called. It has nothing to do with the object at all. And case is a lot like isPickVal. It shares the same behavior. It looks for a value, and if it finds a match, it does something that you specify, but it's more efficient. Instead of like asking Alexa, is it hot? Is it cold? Is it warm? Is it snowing? Is it raining? You just ask Alexa one question. What's it like outside? And it goes through the list of possible the values that you provide and each of the results that you want to return in a single call. So, I mentioned Bot had 17 opportunity stages. I didn't want you guys to have to look at like 12-point or 9-point font. So I kind of consolidated the formula down for the purpose of showing you what I built. So instead of using all those isPickVals, I used a case function and I inserted the API name of the stage, opportunity stage. And this is important if you're just getting into formulas. When you're at a formula, you have to use the API field name. And that's not necessarily the same thing you see when you're looking at a field on a page layout. And opportunity stage is a perfect example of that. The API name is not stage. It's not opportunity stage. It's stage name with a capital S and a capital N and no blank spaces in between. And that's what you need to use when you're writing a formula. So as an admin, I can go into the setup and config and see the entire list of opportunity stages. And I know which one is first and which one is last. So I literally copied and pasted the opportunity stage pick list values into my formula, wrapped quotation marks around them, and then I assigned the number 1 to my first stage. I assigned the number 2 to my second stage. I assigned the number 3 to my third stage, my fourth stage, my fifth stage, went through all my stages. And then when I got to the end, I made closed won and closed lost, both equal to 6 because they're both the last stage that an opportunity can be moved into. And much like a nested if or an if statement, you have to have an else result in case the case function goes through the field and does not find any of those values, even if in case of opportunity stage, you can't leave it blank. You still have to provide an else result. So I just return 0 as my else result. That is mandatory with the case function. So this is what I wrote. Then I copied and pasted what I wrote, but in my second version of my case statement, I wrapped a prior value function around the opportunity stage name. Prior value goes to the opportunity stage field and gets the previous value that was occupied that field before what is going to be saved into the database when the user clicks save or create. And again, the rest of the formula is identical. First stage is number 1, second stage is number 2, third stage is number 3, fourth stage. I'm just turning the word for the opportunity stage into a numeric value. And here is my complete formula. I just created one case statement and then copied and pasted it into the same formula using a prior value on the second one. And then in between my first case and my second case, I just used a less than operator. That's it. I may have flunked out of community college, but even I know that the number 1 is less than the number 2, 3, and 4. And I know that the number 2 is less than 3, 4, 5, and 6. And so now, if the user tries to move this deal from proposal price quote back to value proposition, they get an error message. They can't move the deal backwards. They can only keep it at the current stage or move it forward to its inevitable closure. And the cool thing about this is I posted that solution for bot in 2011. Somebody recently posted a follow-up question. And when I went in, I scrolled through all the 11 plus years of follow-up questions. There's over 100 follow-up questions that original post. People have slightly different requirements. Somebody just the other day, they didn't need to just prevent them from going backwards. They wanted them to, they wanted a rule that would also prevent users from skipping over stages. The deal had to move forward through each stage of the process, but they needed to add an exception because, let's face it, a deal can be lost at any stage. I mean, you could be cold calling someone and they could hang up on you and that deal's not going anywhere. You don't want to force the user to shove the deal through each and every stage just because of your validation rule, because that's going to mess up your opportunity stage history data. It's going to skew the number of deals that really made it to negotiation. They wanted users to be able to go from qualification to close lost, needs analysis to close lost, proposal to close lost. So I took the exact formula I wrote for BOT. Again, this is a consolidated version of it. But at the end of my prior value case statement, I added a +1. And I replaced my less than mathematical operator in between my two cases statements, and I changed it to a not equals operator. If the user changes the opportunity stage and they're not changing it to the next increment in the stage cycle, they're blocked from saving it, unless, if you look at the very top, I added is changed and they're not moving it to closed loss. Again, they can move the deal to closed loss at any point because that's accurate. We want the reporting to be accurate. We want them to be able to go to closed loss when it is closed loss, but anything that's open has to follow the path. And again, I just took my existing formula I wrote for BOT 11 years ago and made a couple of small tweaks. My math is the same. I just changed the less than to a not equals, and I added +1. Again, it's just simple, basic math. I didn't have to use 150 is pick val statements to build this. Does anybody have any questions before I move on to the next one?
This
And you
is
can save for the.
this is brilliant, Steve. I mean, keeping things simple is really not that easy. I've found myself starting to build, oh, okay, this one, and then this if, and then this else if, and then go beyond that. And just ultimately it gives that result, but then there are quite a few errors that kind of hide in between those else and if else's. So making it simple, I think having this clarity is, I think is brilliant. Love it.
And I thing is, I had never written anything quite like that at the time. Like my first attempt at writing that formula, you know, if you go back and look at BOT's post, I'm horrible at PowerPoint, so I don't want to scroll all the way back. But one thing that was missing from his formula was that he was not using the prior value function. But even doing that, he still would have had to write 150 is pick vals to cover all those possible combinations. And so it was, you know, but my first attempt was to basically, I was like, oh, well, the reason why it's not working is because you're not wrapping prior value around all the previous stages. But then I looked at it and was like, holy shit, I'm going to be writing this thing from now until the cows come home. There's got to be a better way of doing this. And that's when I just stumbled onto the whole case thing. And now it's my go-to. Like anytime, if I've got like, you know, a whole bunch of stages or roles or profiles or anything where there's one field with a whole bunch of values in it, and I need to include or exempt a set of values from triggering a validation rule, triggering a flow, triggering a process, whatever, or, you know, a record going into an approval process or being kicked out of that approval process and routed to another one. I use case all the time. And you know what? A lot of time, I'm not even doing that. Like, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm just saying, if it's one of the values I'm looking for, just change it to a 1. If it's not one of the values I'm looking for, change it to a 0. And my trigger criteria is, did the value they select equal 1 or did it equal 0? In, out. I use that trick all the time. And I probably wouldn't have even stumbled onto it if it wasn't for BOT's question.
Nice. You made the math work for you in this one.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And you know, and like, you know, I for whatever reason, as crappy a student as I was in school, basic algebra, I took to it. And so I try to imply like basic algebraic approaches when I write formulas, because that's my comfort zone. Like if I can convert whatever this problem is into algebra, I know I got a good shot at solving it.
I'd like to leave this microphone open. Ame, will you let me know if the feedback is is bad and I need to go on mute?
Absolutely.
Cool. Yeah, let me know. So I want to leave it open so people can ask questions in line. I muted it in case it's coming in. Sorry, Steve.
Okay, that's okay. So this next one, I actually had to build for my own org. But again, after I built it, I shared it in the Trailblazer community, and a whole bunch of people have chimed in over the years with different requirements and stuff like that. Really great guy named Jeremiah Don took what I posted and really took it to other levels, leveraging my approach, but then turning it into like a hyperlink and this and that. Like the post has evolved over the years. So I call it the ultimate parent account. I mean, it's just the name that we came up with where I work. What it really is the name for the very top account in an account hierarchy, no matter how many levels the hierarchy is, or if there is no hierarchy at all. So if you have ever dealt with account hierarchies and then you try to run an opportunity pipeline report and you group the report by the standard parent account lookup field on the account object, you get this. Octan is the parent of Lego and United Oil and Gas. United Oil and Gas is the parent of United Oil and Gas Singapore, UK, and US. And Lego is the parent of Pyramid Construction. And Warnham Hogg is the parent of Dunder Mifflin. But using the parent account field as your top report grouping, all those top parent accounts, including accounts that don't have any subsidiaries at all, they all get grouped, and all their revenue or records or cases or leads, whatever they are, they all get grouped in this blank parent account report group. And the revenue for that parent account and all of the subsidiaries under them are scattered all across this report in all these different buckets. And so maybe you try to add a chart to make more sense out of it. And that's great, provided the person looking at the chart has a calculator that's got red, orange, green, yellow, and blue buttons on it. And I have a saying about reports and dashboards. I mean, I'm kind of a report and dashboard geek or an analytics geek. If you build a report or a dashboard and the person looking at that thing needs a piece of paper and a pencil and a calculator to figure out what that report is telling them, you built a shitty report. And I don't want to be known as the builder of shitty reports where I work. So I had to figure out, like, how can we get this data, this information organized in a readable format? So I, kind of like broke down the problem. I mean, the problem is that, you have no way of knowing of the 25, 30,000 accounts that are in my org, how many levels the account hierarchy is, or whether there is no, I mean, not every company has subsidiaries. Some companies are just a standalone entity. So there is no hierarchy at all. Some accounts are the top account. Some accounts are in the middle. Some are at the bottom. Some are the third in a 5-level hierarchy. Some are the second in a 6-level hierarchy. How do you know which account is the very top one? That's what I needed to figure out. And I gotta throw a shout out to a guy named Deepak Anand, who, in my opinion, is the absolute greatest in the history of the Salesforce Trailblazer community. I mean, his solutions are just on another level. I mean, just jaw-dropping stuff. And it's not just the skill and his technique. When he posts a solution, he also explains exactly what he's doing, why he's doing it, and how the whole thing works. And it was in his explanation of a solution he posted where he used a function called blank value. And when I read it, I finally understood how I could solve my problem. So I mean, like the blank value function, we were talking about weekday and add months as new functions, and Steve Tam and his team just released a whole bunch in the last Salesforce release. But blank value has been around forever. Probably one of the oldest functions in the Salesforce formula catalog. But I would see it when I'd go into the formula editor, but I'd look at the explanation of it. And I couldn't really wrap my head around like what this thing actually did, how I could use it. But it was in Deepak's explanation of how he used blank value to solve his problem that the light bulb went off, or as we say here in Massachusetts, dawn came to Marblehead. So I'll try to do it justice, but I can't really, Deepak's explanation was so much better. Basically, what blank value allows you to do is evaluate a field or a chunk of another formula. And if that field or formula returns nothing, a null or a blank, you can provide a substitute to use instead. So it's really useful, like you can't divide by nothing or the number 0. It literally breaks the laws of mathematics. So if you calling in a field as your divisor and that field on that record happens to be blank, Salesforce is going to return pounds. You're not going to get a syntax error because your formula is syntactically correct. But Salesforce, when somebody looks at that record or a report, they're going to see a pound sign and the word error, because that's what Salesforce does when you break the laws of mathematics. So blank value would allow you to say, all right, I know that in my 100,000 records, not every field has a value in it because it's not a mandatory field. If this record happens to have a blank value in that field, then use this as my divisor so the thing doesn't blow up. Or maybe I've got this optional field. So if the user doesn't specify, I'll point them to another field to use as the default value or something like that. So that's blank value in a nutshell-ish. So here's the formula that I built. So I went into the account object. This field is the custom field that sits on the account object. I selected formula as my result, as my data type, and text as my result type. Now, if you've never used the formula editor before, I strongly recommend whenever you write any formula, use the insert field and insert function buttons. I'm a horrible typist. I've written thousands of formulas. I use the insert field, insert function button every single time. So when you click on the insert field button, there's the object that you're on. And every time you see that greater than sign or a caret, that means that it's a lookup. And you can step through that lookup into the next panel, which is the list of fields on that object. So starting on the account object, I step through to the list of fields on the account object. And I find the parent account field, but not the parent account field that holds the ID, the one above it, the actual parent account lookup field. And I click through that and open up another. All these panels open up automatically as you click on the field. And so I scroll through and I find the parent account lookup field on that parent account. And I keep on clicking through and through and through, finding parent account lookup after parent account lookup, parent account lookup after parent account lookup. Now, I did some research before I built this formula field, and I found that the absolute highest account hierarchy in my org was 4 levels. So I wanted to build a little bit of a buffer so I wouldn't have to update this formula again. And I went up 6 levels. So I kept on clicking through and through and through and through and through until I went to the parent, 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 and then I grabbed the account name. But here's the thing. I don't know, this field is going to be on every single account record. I know for a fact that some of those records are not at the bottom of the account hierarchy. They might be in the middle. They might be at the top. There might not be a hierarchy. So this formula is going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 levels and grab the account name. But what if it goes up 6 levels and it pops its head up like Puxatawny Phil on Groundhog Day, and there's no account name there because there's no record there? Well, using blank value, I can provide a substitute for that occurrence. So I go up 5 levels and I get that account name, but that might also be blank. So using blank value, I provide a substitute. I go up 4 levels. But if that's blank, I use blank value to provide another substitute and go up 3 levels. And if that's blank, I use blank value again. This is just nothing more than a nested blank value function. Each one of these blank values is nested within itself until finally, if I've gone up 6 levels, found nothing, 5 levels, found nothing, 4 levels, found nothing, 3 levels, found nothing, 2 levels, found nothing, 1 level, found nothing, well then there can only be one other result. I must be standing on the top account in the hierarchy, or there is no hierarchy at all, in which case simply return the name of the account record that I'm on at this moment. And then I close out all my nested blank values with all the right parens. It's like kind of like a nested if. So these are all nested within each other. Now, the second I hit save, this new field that I just created on the account object is available in nearly every single standard report type that has access to the account object, including the original report from our first screenshot. So I don't have to go out and build a new custom report type or start with a brand new report. I can take my existing report that I already have that has all the fields I want, all the filter criteria I want, and there in the list of account custom fields, there's my brand new ultimate parent account field. So I just grab that and swap that with the standard parent account field as my top report group, and actually get the parent account field out there because I don't need it anymore. It's useless to me. This is the exact same report we started with, but now grouping it by ultimate parent, I can see all of the Octane Corporation revenue, Octane and its subsidiaries in one nice, neat bucket. And without a piece of paper and a pencil or a calculator, I can see that Octane and its subsidiaries has $6.9 million of revenue in the pipeline. And Wernham Hogg and Dunder Mifflin have $2.7 million worth of revenue in the pipeline. And my report chat, now all the Octane revenue is in one nice, neat, color-coded stack. All the Wernham Hogg revenue, Wernham Hogg and Dunder Mifflin, in one nice, neat stack. And those 3 standalone accounts, Three Stooges, Initech, Midstate Office Supply, they're not in this nameless, faceless report group with no parent account name because they have no parent. Now, the ultimate parent account name, the top parent account, that name displays in the report grouping, and it also displays in the report chat. But at the end of the day, it's nothing more than a nested blank value function. There is a caveat to this. In addition to the compile size limit, there is a number of lookups that you can traverse. I don't know what it is off the top of my head. My recollection is that it's around 10. So you will hit it. Now, you will get the error message in the formula editor when you go to compile and check the syntax. So you'll know right away when you've hit it, whether it's 9, 10, or 11. So you'll know that you've got to either back off like 1 level, or if you really do have like 10, 11 levels, you'll have to do something similar, but you'll need to use flow or some other technology. But this formula does lend itself to a flow formula resource. So it's not, it's not completely, you're not completely dead and you didn't waste all your work. But this is something to be mindful of.
I wouldn't have gotten there. Your code is brutal. It's brute force. You size the problem and then you hit it with brute force. I
but
would have given up
you know,
because any number greater than one is infinity.
but the
And you have to be able to loop through and do things recursively. That's
yeah,
elegant in its brutality.
the thing is, when I built this formula, I did the only typing I did because I had to use the insert field button to reverse all of those object, account, parent account, parent account, parent account. 90% of this formula was written just using the insert button. The only thing I had to do is like copy and paste the blank value function after I inserted the first one and type in those closing right parens at the end. The formula was really written just using the insert button. Probably one of the easiest formulas I've ever written. Now this next one is just a collection of stuff that I have discovered over the years using the text function. I love pick list fields. I'm a data geek. I'm a report and dashboard geek. I consider myself to be a bit of a data purist. Pick list fields are great for that. I mean, there's a reason why things like lead industry and account industry are pick lists, not text fields, because let's face it, if users had to manually input what the account industry is, half of them would be like, I don't know, they make stuff, they build stuff, they do stuff, leave me alone. And so you go to run a report grouped by industry or by opportunity type or something like that, you got 500 misspellings of the same word and all kinds of crap. So pick list fields are great for having structured data, but they can propose some, they've got some quirks when you're writing formulas, whether it's a validation rule, process or flow trigger or something like that. But there's a function out there called text. And what text does when you use it on a pick list field, you can use it in a number of different applications, but when you wrap the text function around a pick list field name, it turns that pick list string from a pick list value into a text string. And when you do that, you can do all kinds of other cool stuff. Because once you turn a pick list value into a text string, you can use other functions like is blank, value, begins, contains, left, right, find, substitute, mid. You can use mathematic operators like equals, not equals, greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. So here's an example of this is a formula I actually use in my own org. So we added a custom pick list field called loss reason to the opportunity. And we wanted to make the field conditionally required. We didn't want to make it a mandatory field. It needed to be conditionally required only when the opportunity stage is closed, lost. And this actually, when I first got this requirement, dependent pick list fields weren't even a thing. That's how old this thing is. But my org is old, goes back to 2003. And so over the years, the different stakeholders have looked at this loss reason field, and they've come up with different, they look at the reports and see how many opportunities were lost for this reason, how many were lost for that reason, how many lost for this other reason. Then somebody's like, well, we don't really have a reason to cover this other scenario. And we've got this loss reason that nobody ever picks. So let's update the loss reason pick list. So I had this, validation rule, if opportunity stage equals close loss, then, and the loss reason is not A, B, C, D, E, F, G, blah, 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 then you can't save the record because you didn't pick one of the loss reasons. And that was fine. But then every time they made a change, I found that I had to update the validation rule every single time. It's like updating this validation rule formula, seemed like 2 or 3 times a year. And at the end of the day, one time I was making this change to this validation rule formula, and I was like, at the end of the day, they don't really care what they picked. just that they like, or I personally don't care what they picked. I just care that they picked something and didn't leave the field blank or empty. So using the text function, instead of writing out all the different values that could be in that pick list field, I used the text function. Now, first thing I did, I just personally, I've gone so far away from using is_pick_val that I can't remember the last time I wrote one. So whenever I have to look for a value in a list field, if I'm not using case, I'll just wrap a text function around it, because that allows me to use equals. I just love the purity of the equals sign. That's just me. So I wrap a text function around the opportunity stage name. I use an equal sign, and I say, is it equal to close lost? If it is, then check the loss reason pick list field, but first convert it to a text string. Great, now it's text. Now I can use the is blank function to evaluate that text string and just let me know, is there something in that text string, or is there nothing in that text string? If there's nothing in that text string, they can't save this record, because you can't move a deal to close loss and leave the loss reason blank. I made this little change to this validation rule. I have never touched that validation rule formula since. I don't know how many years ago it was. It's got to be close to 10 years. I've never had to touch that validation rule ever since I converted it to use text and is blank. You know, it's just one of those like time savers, like, you know, set it and forget it, admin time savers. And some other cool stuff you can do, like, you know, another little quirk about pick list fields. I mean, I love them for their purity, but another little quirk about them is if a pick list value is a number, it is not treated as a numeric value in formulas. You cannot perform math on a pick list value. Even if you got a pick list and it's nothing more than a list of numbers. I mean, you're the admin, you created the pick list field. You typed in the values with your own 2 fingers and you put in the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 0. Salesforce doesn't know the difference between the number 1, a capital I, and a lowercase l. You can't do math with them. But suppose you had a pick list field for the discount percentage, because you don't want people just putting in any discount percent. You want to control it. You want to limit the discount percent to the list that is allowed via sales operations. So that's great, but now you got to do some math. Maybe they want to run a report of how much money is being discounted, how much of the pipeline is being discounted. Well, can't do math with a pick list field, but you can do math with a number. So the first thing I do is I wrap a text function around the pick list field. It is now a text string. Now I can use another function called value. And what value does, it turns a text string into a numeric value. So first I wrap text around the pick list, then I wrap value around the text function. Now I've got a number. Now I can do math. Now I can divide that whole number by 100. Now it's a percent. Now I can multiply the opportunity amount by that percent. And I can see that for a $500,000 deal with a 4% discount, the discount amount is $20,000. Now, here's another one that came up. This one, I got a call one night from a friend of mine. She was making an update to a bunch of formulas in her org, and she was making a relatively small change. But when she tried to implement this update to these formulas, the compile size of all these formulas and formula fields that reference them just exploded. And this was back in the old 5K compile size days. But these wouldn't have even fit under the 15K compile size limit. I mean, these things just blew up. And it wasn't my org, so, you know, get on the phone with her and trying to walk him through it. She emails me a chunk of the formulas, and they actually put that first formula in my initial slide to shame. These things were some of the biggest formulas I've ever seen in my life. And it wasn't my org, so I was trying to get myself like acquainted with the formula and what it was doing, and she was walking me through it. And I noticed that it had a whole bunch of is-pick vowels in there. So my go-to was, of course, using case. And I compile size is not as big a deal now with the 15K limit, but it's still a limit. And I've still seen some big formulas out there. People that they've hit the 5K compile size and they've gone way over. I've seen 20K compile size hits and stuff like that. So, is pick val, as I said, it's not the most efficient way to evaluate a pick list field. And you can see here that if I was using is pick val to look at the pick list value and just give me back the last two numbers using is pick val, if I've got 5 pick list fields, 5 pick list values, this formula is already almost 500 bytes. If I've got 10 pick list values, it almost doubles in size. Now, using case, it's more efficient, but you can still see that it's not that small. And even with case, as the number of pick list values grows, so does the compile size. And again, her formula had dozens and dozens of pick list fields being called in. And each one of those pick list fields themselves had dozens and dozens of values within it. And so I tried case, compile size went down a little, but nowhere near enough. And I was like, how the hell are we going to get under the compile size limit? Like I looked for any fat that I could trim, could not find the little scraps here and there, nothing. And so I was looking at the formula, looking at all the pick lists, and then I noticed that what these pick list calls were essentially looking for a pick list value. And if it found the value, it returned the number. And the number that it was returning was identical to the last 3 characters of the pick list value. And so I asked her, like, is that true of every single one of these pick list values? She's like, yeah. Are the pick list values in the exact same format? A couple of words or a word, but then a 3-digit number at the end with a decimal. It's like, yep, every single one of them. And when she said that, I was like, I got an idea. Don't know if it's going to work. It's just an idea. I mean, I tell people all the time, I'm like Leonardo da Vinci. My head's full of ideas, but most of them are as useless as a wooden helicopter powered by ropes and pulleys. So instead of using his pick val, instead of using case, I used the text function. I wrapped a text function around the pick list value. Now it is not a pick list value. It is a text string. Then, now that it's a text string, I can use another function called write. What write does is it goes all the way out to the end of the text string, the right-hand side of the text string, and it gets the number of characters that you tell it to go get. So I said, go to the end of this thing and get me the last 3 characters. So write goes all the way up, grabs the last 3 characters. Then I used value to turn those last 3 characters into a numeric value. And when I did that, the compile size plummeted. And it didn't just drop. I mean, it plummeted because it didn't even matter how many values were in that pick list field. 5, 10, 20, it didn't matter. The compile size stayed flat. And like I said, she had dozens of pick list values in each field and dozens of pick list fields in this formula. And we got under the 5K compile size limit, got the formula saved, got the process working, but could not have done any of it at all without the text function. Text unlocked that pick list field that allowed me to use write. that allowed me to use value, that allowed me to do math. It's just a great little tool to have in your admin belt. Little word of advice: no matter how simple your formula is, and how good you think you are at writing formulas, myself included, always create a report or a list view that shows the field that your formula is using for input and your formula field side by side, and check your work. Just because you write a syntactically correct formula doesn't mean it's logically correct. So, little word of advice.
Yeah, so quick question.
Yep.
Text, you don't have to use is pick list val to pull the text of a pick list field?
Nope.
Okay, I have struggled with that before. I thought you had to do that to access the data because it was stored sort of array. How has that been for long? It seems like that's an old function for you.
Text has been around for a long time,
I know
although
text has, but text converting a pick list value to text without having to say is pick val.
yeah,
I feel that
mean,
that didn't work before.
trying to remember the first time I used it. It's been over 10 years.
Okay.
Because that's when I first used it to solve that lost reason thing. It wasn't always available across the entire platform. It was like, I forget which one came first. I think it was in formula fields, but it wasn't in workflow rules. And at the time, there was no such thing as process builder. There was no such thing as flow builder. Workflow was the automation tool other than Apex code. So there was this gap. You couldn't use text in a workflow rule. You had to use is pick val. And then it was funny. It was like Dreamforce 10 or 11. I was they had a panel of us MVPs and a bunch of the Salesforce product managers and technology leads. And I threw it out there. And as soon as I threw the question out there, Shauna Wolverton, she was like, I smell a rat. This is a setup. And Shannon Hale, whose team owned formulas at the time, she was like, well, actually, my team has recompiled the text function, and it will be available in workflows in the next release. And so that was like a huge win in terms of process automation. It just made writing workflow rule triggers and stuff like that 10 times easier.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. I don't know. I've wasted a bunch of time with this pick val.
Yeah. And here's one that comes up a lot. A lot of people think that you have to use text. A lot of people think you have to use text within a case statement. Case can handle pick list fields all by itself. It can interpret a pick list value without any conversion at all.
I've been wasting a lot of lines of code.
Yeah.
I just pasted into the chat.
Oh.
There is a formula testing site that's open source but published for use. Have you used that?
I think I did, and it's funny you should mention that because it kind of dovetails with the next thing I was going to show. You talk about like you can plug in your variables or your field values.
You can create a data type and enter a test piece of data and see what the output is of the formula while you're writing it. And Chris has a question.
I was wondering, how do you find out the compile size of the formula?
Can you hear that, Steve?
Yep.
Okay.
The compile size is only visible, as far as I know, in a formula field when you click the check syntax button. I don't know whether validation rule formulas do not have a compile size or are not limited by compile size, but if you click check syntax in a validation rule formula, it just comes back and either says it's either red or black. It either has a syntax error or it's syntactically correct. But a formula field will tell you the compile size, and it'll even tell you if you make it, if you create a formula or if you update an existing formula that is called in by other formula fields, like you see this a lot, like somebody will create a formula field to calculate the duration of something from create to close, or a person's age, a contact's age, or something like that. And then rather than have to rewrite that in like a text field that will bucket people like age 0 to 18, age 18 to 30, blah, 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 they'll just say, all right, well, if my age formula I already wrote is returning this number, then I want to display this word. And if it's that number, I want to display this other word. So what would happen is if you make a change to that age formula or whatever formula field is being referenced down the line, and that change causes them to exceed the limit, you'll get an error message saying something like, the compile size of other formula fields is now too big. Should be a little PS. Good luck finding out which ones they are, because it doesn't tell you like, okay, yeah, you made this formula compile from 500 to 2500. That had a ripple effect, and now you got 5 other formula fields that are now broken. Here are the 5 formula fields. Nope, you gotta good luck. Go hunting. I mean, it is really handy. There's that where is this field used button, and formula, there are no standard formula fields. So if you're writing a formula field, it is custom. So it is available on any custom field, and it will show you the other formula fields that are referenced by that formula. But then you got to go into each one of them and edit them, optimize them if you can. But things are getting better. So
That's another question. Sorry.
Yep.
On your previous example there, I'm fairly new to administration, so excuse me, this question is simplistic, but if your 5.0s and your numbers have not been at the end of your string, but had actually been in the center somewhere, would you have changed the right to a contains to try to find that value?
Yeah, I would have either used a contains, or if I knew, I've had to actually do stuff like that. If you're lucky, there's some consistency, maybe a delimiter like a semicolon before you get to the number, or a blank space, a hyphen, and a blank space. Something that is, that's really key, because contains it will work, but it's a little bit vague and a little bit finicky. So if at all possible, whoever structured that field did it in a consistent format with some kind of just consistent, either a character in front of or in back of the numeric value that you want, and they're consistent about it. If that's the case, then I would use a function called find, and then a function called mid. Depending on the complexity of the number and the pick list value, it can get pretty hairy. But you can, what I usually do is I'll create little little just test formula text fields where I just like use find to make sure that I'm actually finding that special character, and I'll just have a text field that just brings me back the very next character next to it, and I'll run my report or my list view, and if I see the right character, it's like, okay, I'm in the right spot. Oh no, I'm off by 1 character. I gotta go over 1. I gotta add a +1 or a -1 or something like that. So I break it down bit by bit, but that's, I usually do something using a find and then mid. So mid is kind of like the middle of left and right. But the thing is, you got to tell it how far out to go. You can't just say, go to the middle of this thing and look left and look right and look for a number somewhere. It can't do that. mid goes out. You basically tell mid, mid's got a blindfold on, and you tell mid, you got to go out 12 steps. And when you go out 12 steps, now you can open your eyes, and there will be, hopefully there will be a number there. Now I want you to get that number and bring it back and do this math with it. But again, like, using text, you can, text really, like, the world is your oyster as far as functions go, because now you can use mid, you can use find. Find will actually tell mid how many characters out to go, because you can tell, you can use find to tell the mid, okay, I found this hyphen. I want you to go out to where I found this hyphen. And when you get there, right in front of you will be a number. Now go out and get that number and bring it back and do the math we got to do. You can go down a rabbit hole. But it's sometimes those are the fun ones to work on. When you're not, that's the thing, like when your phone's not ringing off the hook and your inbox isn't jammed, sometimes those can be the fun ones, because it's like, you just do your first little, you send your first little monkey up into space, before you send your human beings, and it's like, okay, Chim Chim came back alive. Okay, I know that I went out as far as that number is. Now let me see if I can get that number and nothing else, none of the text behind it, because you can't mix and match. You can't pull that in. It's fun.
Most of those string functions are conserved between a lot of languages, Excel especially. So you can
exactly. I mean, I say all the time. People ask me, like, how I got good at writing formulas. I had a huge leg up before I even wrote my first Salesforce formula. I was a Lotus Domino developer for about 3 years before that, and Lotus had a formula language. And I swear, if I could dust off my old Lotus formulas, I could drop half of them into Salesforce and they would work without changing a thing. The functions, the syntax, the 99% of the same DNA. So I before I wrote my first Salesforce formula, I had already written thousands of formulas that would work inside of Salesforce. I just wrote them in Lotus Domino. I didn't roll out of the womb on day one as a Salesforce formula whiz. Anyone who's just getting into formulas, I trust me, I understand that they're a little bit foreign, and there's a learning curve, and some, like, I'm an and or guy. Some people, they cannot stand looking at and or in formulas. They're all ampersand pipes. Me, I see ampersand pipes and it's like I'm reading Pig Latin. But that's how some people think and read, and I would say, like, use whatever works for you. There's no right. The only right or wrong is something that doesn't work for you. If you like and or, have at it. If you like ampersand pipe, double pipe, have at it. Only thing I would say is, don't mix and match, for the love of God. That drives me balubas when somebody posts a question and I'm like, all right, so what's this formula you're talking about? And they post it and it's and double ampersand pipe or pipe and or pipe ampersand. I'm like, it's like reading a fucking ransom note cut out a newspaper clipping.
Copy paste. Picasso.
Yeah, exactly. Or like, okay, so when did you come along? Because this formula looks like it was written by 3 different people over a 5-year period, and they each had their own style of writing. So what is yours, and what did you inherit, and what are you trying to do? And it's not just the readability. You open yourself, the placement of commas and parentheses then becomes really, really challenging when you mix the two together, and ampersands. So I just keep it pure, stick to one, pick one and stick with it. So this next one I want to show you is a little trick that I came up with when I was making a change to a validation rule formula in my org. And it was a change to an opportunity validation rule. And I always get a little bit nervous, when I'm updating an opportunity validation rule or anything around opportunities, because like, let's face it, that's probably like the single most important object in any Salesforce org. I mean, you could fuck up activities and people aren't going to notice for like a week or a month, if ever. You want to get people's attention, you screw up the sales pipeline. You prevent people from closing deals. You write a formula that returns an invalid dollar amount or something like that. Your head will be on a stick outside the front door of the building as a message to all who enter, never to do that again. So I was making this change to a validation rule in my org, and it was on opportunities, and it was an existing rule, but I had to amend it a little bit, and I had to amend it with a couple of ors, and I always get a little bit nervous because even though I've written thousands of formulas, ors can open up a loophole or create a loop, and so I always get nervous about making updates like that. And when you're writing a formula, like especially like a formula field, there's the check syntax buttons. You build your formula, you think you got it right, you close your eyes, make a wish, click the check syntax button, open them. Hopefully you see a green message, not a red message. There's no syntax errors. You're under the compile size limit, blah blah blah. Happy days. Well, the problem is that button only checks the syntax. And I remember from basic algebra that A plus B divided by C and A plus B divided by C, they're both syntactically correct, but they'll give you completely different, and in some cases, potentially bad results. But there's no check logic button on the formula editor, not in formula fields, not in validation rules, nowhere. So how do you test that your logic is sound? So I was thinking about it, and I'm updating this validation rule. And at the end of the day, when you write a validation rule, what you're really doing is writing a test. You're writing the criteria for what defines a bad record, the type of record you don't want the user to be able to save. So a record either fails the validation rule, it returns a true result, meaning it's true, it's a bad record, or it passes returns a false result, it's not a bad record, and it passes. The user is allowed to save the record. And just like validation rules, checkboxes are Boolean. They're either true or false, a 0 or a 1, wax on, wax off. So what I did is I created a new custom field on my opportunity object. I only created one of these fields on the object. You don't need to create one for every single validation rule formula. I created a field called validation rule test. I selected formula as my data type and checkbox as my result type. And I had to write, so suppose we needed to write a validation rule. This is not the one I had to write. This is just a simple one for an example. Suppose you had to write a validation rule to prevent sales users from creating or editing an opportunity that's open, but with a close date that's in the past. But the problem is that, after the opportunity is closed, other people, and after the opportunity is closed and that close date is long gone, there are people who need to edit that opportunity record to put in like the shipping number or the invoice date or the payment date or some other information. So you don't want to trigger this when the opportunity is closed, won, or lost. Maybe the user has to update that a couple of fields after the deal's lost, like a post-mortem, like we have in my org, some post-mortem fields that the information might not be known until weeks or months after the opportunity is actually closed, lost, but we have the users fill them out. We don't want them triggering an error message, and we don't want them having, fudging the opportunity close date just so that they can update this field and save the record, because now your close date data is bogus. So we might write the formula like this, like I'm an and or guy. So if the close date is less than today, and I'm also a text guy, the opportunity stage is not closed won or not closed lost. Or if you're is pick val person, you could say not is pick val closed won, not is pick val closed lost. Some people use ampersands and pipes and stuff like that. There's hundreds and hundreds of different ways that you could write this validation rule formula, and they're all syntactically correct, but are they logically correct? So before I put this formula into a validation rule, I put it into my validation rule test checkbox formula. So I put it in there, I check the syntax, make sure I don't have any syntax errors, I pass that. Now, if this formula returns a checked checkbox, that means that the record would fail the validation rule. If this formula returns an unchecked checkbox, that means that the record would pass the validation rule as it's written, and the user would be allowed to save the record. So I hit save, and then I create a report or a list view that shows all the fields that my formula is evaluating and my validation rule checkbox fields side by side. And right away, I can see I've got a problem. I have three checked checkboxes in my validation rule test on closed won and closed lost opportunities. They should be exempt from this validation rule. Does anybody want to take a guess what I did wrong? And it's the same thing. It's not the ampersand or the use of ampersand or the use of and. The same.
Not equal? Because they're not equal passes one and not the other. Either way, if it's one or the other.
Yep, winner, winner, chicken dinner. It's the use of the word or with not. See, opportunity stage is a pick list field, not a multi-pick list, thank God. And a user can only pick one value. But by using the word or the double pipe, I created a loop from which no user could ever save this record and pass the validation rule. Because if they pick closed won, the record will fail because they did not pick closed lost. And if they pick closed lost, it will fail because they did not also pick closed won, unless the user is Schrodinger's cat, in which case all bets are off. So
not equals is dangerous.
Yeah,
I've stopped using not equals because of that very reason.
Yeah. So we wrap the whole thing, remove the or, wrap the whole thing inside of an and. If the close date is less than today, and it's not closed won, and it's not closed lost, or using ampersands like this, now we put this into our validation rule test checkbox formula. We check the syntax, that's good. Now we go back to our list view, and we can see that the only two records that have a checkbox are the two records that should have a checkbox. Open opportunities with a closed date in the past. So now we know that not only is our syntax correct, our logic is sound. And now we can deploy this validation rule, and we're not going to be trapping our users in an endless loop from which they can never escape. And going back to my first formula using the case, this is how I actually would write this today using the case. So going back to like that validation rule that I wrote for bot. See, only thing I care about is whether it's closed won or closed lost or not. So my two closed values, I just turn them into one. I don't turn one into a one, the other one into a two. It's either closed one or closed lost, or it's not. It's either a one or a zero. So if the stage returns, if whatever the value they selected in the stage is the equivalent to the number zero and the close date is less than today, they're blocked from saving the record. Now, there is another caveat to this. Not every function that is available in a formula, in a validation rule, is available in a formula field. You can't create a formula field that has is new, is changed, prior value, VLOOKUP, or regex. So if your validation rule formula has one of those functions in it, you're going to have to comment it out and kind of fudge the rest. But if your validation rule formula is like ours and doesn't have any of those functions, you can literally test the entire thing as is. You don't have to change anything. You can just test it, copy and paste it into your validation rule, and you're good to go. So without further ado, here it is, the greatest formula ever written. And I did not write this. As I said at the beginning, it was taught to me by a guy named Tom Tobin, who used to work for Salesforce. And I learned it at an analytics workshop at my very first Dreamforce. And it's called the Power of One. And so you create this on every single object in your org. I'm not kidding. I have this on every standard object. When I create a new custom object, it is the first field I add to the object, and it's all the same. You select formula as the data type, number as the result, 0 decimals. I see people put decimals in there. Don't do that. It's going to look ugly. And also, I see this a lot. Don't name the thing Power of One. I see people do this all the time. They create Power of One fields on every single object, and they name every single one of them Power of One, like George Foreman naming every single one of his kids George. I personally name mine after the object that I am creating it on, because that is the thing I'm going to use to count with it. And here's the formula. You open the formula editor and you type in the number 1. And the second you do that and hit save, every single record of that object is going to have a number 1 on it in this field. And every single record that is created from that point forward until the sun burns out will have a number 1 on it. So what's the big deal? You create the Power 1 field on the opportunity. Then you look at an opportunity record. It's got a 1. What's so great about it? Why is this the greatest formula ever written? Here's why it's so great. Here is a plain vanilla opportunities with product summary report. And I'm using the standard total record count report option. And I can see that I've got 1,251 records in this report. But what? Are they opportunities? Are they accounts? Are they opportunity owners? Okay, I flunked out of community college, but I can count to 6. But I have no idea of knowing what type of record those 1,251 records are. I have no idea of knowing. I mean, I can count to 6. I know that there's 6 users who own an opportunity in this pipeline report. I have no way of knowing how many accounts there are. I have no way of knowing how many opportunity records there are. It's an opportunities with products report. I have no way of knowing how many opportunity products there are. I have no way of knowing how many specific product lines are being sold. The second I hit save, just like that ultimate parent account, the second I hit save, my Power of One fields are available in every standard report of this report type. And now you have the option to add them to every custom report type that you create, including the existing report that we ran at the beginning. I open my existing report. I don't have to reinvent the wheel. there's my account power of one field. I grab it, drag it up, and select summarize sum. I do the same thing for my opportunity power of one field. Drag it up, select summarize one. I do the same thing for my opportunity product line item power of one field. Drag it, select summarize sum. I do the same thing for my user power of one field. Drag it up, summarize sum. My product power of one field, summarize sum. This is the exact same report we started with. Now I can see that there are 6 users who own an opportunity. There are 41 accounts that have an opportunity. There are 1,067 opportunities. There are 315 opportunity product lines. There are opportunity product line items. There are 18 product lines being sold, all using that little number 1. And that is what makes it the greatest formula ever written. Now, some people say, like, well, you got count unique. I think there's still a limit to the number of times you can use count unique, and count unique is not portable. You have to, every time you create a report, you got to add count unique to it. Power One, you create a custom formula field, it's right there in the list of fields. It's all ready to go. You just drag it and drop it, drag it and drop it. It's right there. And you can use it in report summary formulas. It's just, it's still the best. I learned it in 2009. It is still hands down the best formula I've ever seen. And that's a wrap.
Brutal, brutal. That is brutal. That is a new type of coding. The brutal championship. Love it. Any questions? So yeah, I think that's actually performant, and I want to say I've seen people do that before. Now, couldn't you do that with a default value as well and have that in there in that field as opposed
Nope.
to?
It will. Here's the thing about default values. If you have a mature org or an org that's been around for any amount of time and you've got existing records, when you create a new field, not a formula field, when you create a non-formula field and you put a default value in that field, existing records will not automatically inherit that default value.
Okay.
Yeah, I got burned by that. I thought, well, it's the default value. And then all of a sudden I ran a report and I was like, what the hell? I got 15,000 records that have nothing in this field. And I went back. So that's the beauty of a formula field. It goes back. If you have a bazillion existing records, every single one of them is going to have a 1, and they will forever have a 1. Just
I think some is actually more performant from a CPU perspective than count unique is inside of SQL. So that's.
Yeah, and I know that with count unique, you used to only get 1 per report. I think they upped the limit to maybe 3 or 5, but there are also some issues with using count unique in a summary formula. And here's the thing about count unique, and I don't hate on count unique. I think that there's things that count unique can do that Power One might not necessarily be able to do. Count unique only gives you the count of unique occurrences of that value. Now, if you're using a value that is truly unique, like ID, then yeah, it is the number of records of that type. So I used this just the other day in a report summary formula. A report was grouped by a pick list value, and I needed to get the count of report groups. So using count unique, I was able to get the number of report groups and then use that to get the average of the subtotals. Could not have done that with Power One. But Power One's not meant for that. Power One is just to give you the count of unique records of that object.
Cool.
Yeah. So Steve, I just want to say a great job on this presentation. This looks really good. I was just wondering, when's your book going to be out?
Things you can do with F and Salesforce.
Hey Steve, I have a question. That was a great session, by
Yeah.
the way.
Thank you.
So, how do you handle you have reached the maximum number of 20 unique object references on the object when working with formula fields?
What's that?
So we get this message or error which says you have reached the maximum number of 20 unique object references on the object.
Oh, okay. I don't know if I've ever hit that limit. Within a single formula?
Yes.
Oh, man, what's that formula doing?
Yeah, you got to picture it didn't happen.
What?
You share the formula in the text.
Yeah, let me find it.
Okay. Yeah, is there a maximum number of fields that you can reference inside of a formula?
We have encountered that error.
What?
We have encountered that error, so that error is real in terms of the maximum references that you can have.
What's the definition of reference for this context?
Within. So when you're like, all the fields that you have in the formula depends like which objects they are related to.
Okay.
So ultimately, like you try the old formula, like from account you're referencing contact, opportunity, and from opportunity you're going to like opportunity product. In that way, I mean it's not the most like best thing to do having like 20 different references. So if you end up doing that, then yeah, you get the error.
Okay. So maybe unique objects reference in a formula or unique fields and unique object reference in a formula. Seems like 20 would be low.
Hmm. Oh, did somebody?
Looked like Satish was about to share, but
Okay, yeah. I stopped sharing if he wants to share his present.
Oh, well, I'm still looking for that because I encountered this a while ago. I'm still trying to get which formula field is it. If I get, I'll post it in the chat.
okay. All right, any other questions?
Real quick, Steve, how do you feel about refactoring? So when your org is from 2003, when you go back and you look at old formulas.
Oh, I cringe.
Nightmare.
I cringe. Okay. So here's a little formula gotcha, and I was guilty of this myself. Like when you're creating an opportunity stage, like it's stage, case status, lead status. They're not just a plain vanilla pick list field. Salesforce asks you for a couple of other pieces of information because they drive other things down the line, like forecast category, default probability, blah, blah, blah. You got to specify default probability, default forecast category. And you've also got to define what type that stage is. And there's only 3 choices: open, closed won, or closed lost. What Salesforce does when you define that as an admin, when the user picks any of those stages, Salesforce sets 2 hidden checkbox fields. The opportunity object has 2 hidden checkbox fields on it: is closed and is won. Every opportunity stage, no matter how many stages you got, no matter how many sales processes you got, no matter how many opportunity record types you got, every opportunity stage is either open or it's not open. Every opportunity stage is either won or it's not won. And Salesforce sets those 2 checkbox fields to true or false. And so when I saw that, I was like, oh, great. Because I used to have like 5 sales processes, 50 different stages, and like 20 different versions of the word won, 10 versions of the word lost, and 50 different ways to say negotiation. And it's like, I just care if the deal is open. I just care if the deal is won. So I saw those things. And I was like, oh, this is going to be my time saver. I started using them in validation rules. Don't buried in the online help and training, there's this little validation rule tips and tricks thing. And Salesforce says, but they don't say why, but Salesforce says, do not use is closed or is one in a validation rule formula. And that's all they say. They say use stage, use opportunity stage name. And then that's it. They don't explain why. My guess is that somewhere in the 30-something step Salesforce order of execution from when a user clicks the new button or the edit button, calls that record up from the database, displays it to the user, edits it or fills in the fields and hits save, and it gets evaluated. The mandatory fields get evaluated. The fields that are required via the page layout get evaluated. Apex gets evaluated. Triggers get evaluated. Processes, flows, blah, blah, blah. Somewhere those things happen at a specific moment and in a specific order, and you can't change the order. My guess is that there is a lag between the user picking the stage and Salesforce setting is closed and is one to true false, and validation rules are somewhere in the middle. And so you could have this nanosecond where the opportunity stage is closed one, but the closed and one checkbox fields have not been checked yet. And so your validation rule that's looking down here at those checkboxes is going to be like, well, they're not checked. It's good to go. And then all of a sudden that ship has sailed and Salesforce updates the checkboxes. That's my guess, is that it's something with order of execution.
Anyone else online? Question?
But so getting back. So I was updating, this was years and years and years ago, but after I became aware of that fact, I was making a change to something and I saw a validation rule that had is closed equals false in it. And I was like, holy shit, gotta fix that.
Fix it before somebody notices.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing to see here.
I'm sure you've never done anything that skirts the edges of Salesforce best practice.
Yeah. Never.
Well, cool. Well,
I've got my documentation right up here.
Yeah. Steve, I'm going to share. We've got a quick video, I hope, synchronized from Moyes. So let me see. Okay, that's the low quality one. So give me a second. I thought I downloaded it, but it's not there. Let's see if I can get it here again. Our group founder recorded a cameo message from TDX. So I was going to try and play it at the beginning, but I was fighting with the internet for a good full half hour. And then, into the meeting, as you all saw. Yep, and while I'm going to kill video from this computer while I'm doing that. Yeah, speed it up, download a little bit. And Steve, this was fantastic. This refolded a couple of different, it's not lateral, but it's just, it's brutal. It's another way of hitting problems dead on instead of trying to go fancy or coming sideways. That's a new coding style. I'm going to credit you as being the founder of. It's how I do it's not how I do algebra, but it's how I do complex math.
Yeah.
I don't try and figure out or solve it the right pathway. If there's 4 variables, I just start testing values. Does 1 work? Does 2 work? I don't try and reverse engineer a triple, 3 variable equations. If it's less than 100, I've got time. I'm going to try all the.
Oh, I am Mr. like creature of habit. If all you have is a hammer, every
Yep.
problem looks like a nail. I'm getting into flow and things like that, but I don't know if I'll ever just grasp Apex and Visual Force and Lightning Web Components. I think that's, you know, I'm the guy who's like, you know, I learned to make fire by rubbing two sticks together, and people like, you know, hey, have you tried the light bulb? And I'm like, no, I got light right here. I got light right here. You know, hey, well, you know, get the, you know, solar panels. No, I can make heat. I can make heat out of this. You know,
No, I actually want to see you try it because you bring the same brutal programming to Apex. I want to see what kind of stuff you come up with.
I ran into, I think it was at Texas Dreamin' years ago. I ran into you know, David K. Lou, who's brilliant, was doing a great session, and he asked me one time, it's like, you know, why haven't you tried Apex? And I was like, I think I'm getting. I think he took it as a challenge. I think he's just like, I'm gonna teach you Apex one of these days.
All right, here I'm going to play this video real fast.
Dallas Stats. It's good to be in San Francisco again. This is my favorite event each year.
Mars.
It's at DX as opposed to Dreamforce. Dreamforce is a lot more jam-packed. As you see behind me, the event is held at the same place at Moscone West. We're just arriving here this morning, and I'll have more updates as the week goes along. Again, great to be back in San Francisco in person. Have a great event tonight.
All right, that's Moyes. He is greatness. Yep, let's see, where did my... Oh, yeah, the big red button that says stop sharing. That's the one. There we go. I'm not smart enough for Zoom. Outstanding.
Another little thing that somebody actually brought this to my attention with the validation rule checkbox thing is that.
Yeah, that's cheating. I'm gonna have to call foul on that one. That is all the terror of validation rules.
No, but this is funny. Like I built it for like just my own like little like, you know, way to validate my logic. And somebody pointed out that like, you know, you can now run a report and in real time with your real data, because it's, you know, you don't even have to give users read access to this thing. It's just something you as an admin or dev use for your own Q&A testing. So you can use it in production. It's not going to hurt anything. You can use it to report with your live real data and see, you know, if the validation rule does work, it does work as it should. You can then see in a report exactly how many bad records you got. So you can kind of like plan ahead, like, oh crap, when we activate this thing on Friday night, Monday morning, we got to, you know, cancel all the meetings on Monday morning because our phones are going to be ringing off the hook from users who suddenly have to fill out this new mandatory field because we got
a good error message.
We got 15,000 bad record, you know, that 15,000 records that were good on Friday are now considered bad, and the users are going to be, hopefully the messaging on this and the user training on this has been good, or, you know, like it gives you that heads up. It's like, okay, we got a lot of users who are going to get hit by this thing. So before we activate the validation rule, let's get the word out. Hey, just so you know, close date can't be in the past anymore. You've got to either, if the deal's not going to happen, close it out as a loss. If it is potentially going to happen, get a more realistic decision date from the client or prospect and move the close date out into the future. But you can't just keep, you know, have a close date from 2021, 2020. Get the message out to the users on that this thing is going to be live and they're going to have to deal with it and get, you know, documentation out there and training out there. It you know, a little formula checkbox field, but you can use it in it's got a number of benefits, and a lot of little ones like that I built. I built a formula checkbox to calculate if the opportunity closed on or before the current day of the month. So somebody wanted to see like dynamic reports, what their sales pipeline was on day 15 of this month compared to day 15 of the month before that, the month before that, the month before that. So I built this formula checkbox, real simple formula checkbox, and they were using it as a filter. They wanted to filter out the remaining days of each month so that the data set was consistent. But I was playing around with it after I built it for her, and instead of using it as a report filter, I let all the data in, including the records that had an unchecked or a checked checkbox, but I used it as a report grouping, and that allowed me to see month by month, side by side, what the remainder of the previous month was, the month before that, the month before that, so that I could kind of set expectations and also maybe identify trends like, oh, okay, the fact that we're not quite at the same point that we were on day 15 last month or the month before that or the month before that, it might look bad, but it's actually, it looks like our customers' buying behavior is actually changing. They're just making their purchases later in the month. So this is it's just part of a trend. No need to lay everybody off. The numbers are actually month by month actually doing okay. It's just the customer's behavior is changing. You can use it to analyze the data instead of filtering it. That's like it's fun. It's just funny how like you just go back, like, you know, the validation rule formula I built for BOT in 2011. I mean, like, if I have my if I'm logged into the Trailblazer I don't know if I could find it.
I'm going to type. I've got 2 questions. I'm going to type them so I don't forget them.
Sure.
I didn't know if you were still mid-thought and what you were looking up on.
No. I'm just trying to find that that original post from him. It was posted on October 27, 2011, and there are 116 follow-up questions. The gift that keeps on giving.
Nice. Yeah, we'll post a link to that in the chat. Yeah. And my brain started working on questions while I lost the thread. I don't know if you're still looking something up.
No, I just posted a link to the question in the,
So a big problem,
Oh.
so, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just gotta go up and make sure my daughter's in bed. She's got MCAS tomorrow. So
Oh, okay.
be back in just a couple minutes. All right.
Okay.
Bye.
Should we sit here quietly? Have any of you gotten a chance to watch my event flow hack, where I use platform events to do infinite records with flows? So, and I had some, I keep getting people to challenge me, and I've done a flow that processed 1.3 million records. Normally, the max amount of records that a flow can process is 2,000, because the number of iterations that a flow can do, the maximum calculations, actions inside of a flow is 2,000. If you have a flow that does 2 actions, it can only process 1,000 records. If it's 3 actions, 600, 4, 500. But if you get a flow to run off an event, the event doesn't, events don't track the transaction. So a flow can only run so long anyway until it starts hitting transaction timeouts. You can call a flow recursively, basically, by at the end of a flow, having it emit an event, which is the same type event that started it. So you can say, run on 1,000 records, save those records and mark them as done for today, emit an event that says, run on accounts again. Go get all the accounts that don't have that tag from the last run, process 1,000, exit, start yourself again. And if you don't hit 1,000, if you have less than 1,000, then you've hit the end of your records. Don't sit another event. So it's using the same flow and just saving your place and starting it over again. It'll run, you can run it 1 record at a time and it'll loop infinity, or you can run it 1,000, which is more performant, and then say just hit 1,000 or hit 500, hit 300 each time, and it'll just keep going in batches of 300 until you run out of records.
How well does that perform?
Really well. It's just running a flow 3,000 times. It's, yeah, instead of, so when you're normally you have a record, you start on a record or a schedule. Hey, at 12 o'clock, run this flow. I have another flow that says at 12 o'clock, send an event. And then the flow says, I got the event, which is the same thing as the record. I'm going to run at the end of the event. I emit an event, which causes me to run that again. And you just do that until you run out of records. You put a test at the end. Hey, was this 1,000 times or was it less? If it was less, I'm done. Infinite records. Now slicing big data. So if you've got 1.1 million records, you can't select against accounts that have 1.1 million records unless you've got indexed fields that get it down to within 50,000 records. I keep trying to find hacks to go and look at my data and say, okay, I can't do it on create date equals this. I can't do a function on month created or year created. You can. You can write a formula that populates a year and have that touch every field. And then you've got the numbers are kind of innately indexed, and so you can select against them. You can do get records. You do get records on 1.1 million object without a filter that gets it between 50,000, you get an error. So trying to write formula, so I can write a formula. I've tried writing formulas that says carve up the date to where I can, if I've got 50,000, if I've got 500,000, I can say create month is going to be 1 through 12. That should give me 1/12 slices of 500,000 records. But formula results are not selectable. That's what I want to ask him about, how to get that data. Reports render and they'll go through it and they're crunching the data, and that they process that formula at read time. A query that depends on an index requires a hard copy of that data already being put on the data, and not a formula that it's going to only run that data. You know, if you say, start date or one doesn't actually exist in the field until something reads it, and then it goes and processes the formula and then comes back. One is never actually stored in the database. So queries like get records couldn't find one with, power of 1 equals 1, that's not selectable because you can't select against the formula. So I'm wondering if he's done anything with that.
So whatever you're trying to do with the platform event and the flow, right, is the same logic that you can do in the batch class.
In the what?
Batch class, batch Apache.
Yeah. Except, well, yeah, I mean, yeah, you'd have to break it down and bulkifying it, but it's,
Yeah.
you can do a million records without getting into Apex.
And as you process it, you're tagging those records that you processed it. And so is that just a variable that you created in the flow? That's not something that you're saving to the.
So it's the least elegant part of this hack that I built is that most of the time I show people to do it, I create a variable for last batch run time. And then I create a collection as I'm processing it. If I'm saying send an email to every account or create a case for every account, I create a case object that'll have 300 case objects, and I create an account object that has all of the account IDs that I've created a case object for. I write the case objects. If that succeeds, next step is write back to the account object, and that tags everything.
Right.
And then the first step of my flow is select the accounts that don't have today's date as the last runtime.
And then basically when the flow finally completes, it
All-
basically destroys all of the tagging that you've done. So
You-
the next time
You could do that, or I just leave it. If it's running every day, I only care about not today. If it didn't process, it didn't exist, if that record didn't exist, I don't care. It's just not today. So I process it. You can do it. The more elegant way to do it without writing 300 account updates, which in a non-playground org could have a bunch of triggers attached to it, is find an index and pivot off of the index. Hey, my last ID was this, and I'm going to pass that back into the event and say everything greater than that one and go through that. And as long as nothing had, IDs are technically numerically ordered, and you should be able to say greater than or less than on an ID. And if you pass that back, you should be able to do it. In theory, that should work. I haven't tried it. That would be the more elegant, no right way to do that. But I haven't tested that one yet, but it should work. Hey, you back, Steve?
Yeah,
All that
I'm
said?
back. I'm back, and I brought a friend.
Oh, outstanding. That's waiting for me at home. So I was just, I kind of want to put my, I've got a flow hack that lets me do unlimited records as long as I can slice them. And I'm trying to look at formulas to slice data, but they can't exist as formulas because you can't filter on the value of a formula in get records. So when using data sets that are larger than 50,000 records, you have to have a filter value that gets the return record set under 50,000 or flows won't process. So I've got a pattern that I can run against an infinite number of records by using events and recursively calling a flow based on an event. And I'd love to show it to you because I think it's perfect for you to break or find another way. It's technically cheating, and I'm going to get a call from Salesforce because you can accidentally put infinite loops in it if you don't set the values right. But what I'm trying to do is figure out how to create formulas that help dissect data into smaller parts. And okay. Are we waking your daughter? I don't know where I'm waving at. I'm waving at the screen. You can't see me.
But are you not able to use calendar year, calendar month in flows?
Most of the time dates are selectable, but if the date, like the created date, it's indexable, that's a valid selectable. But if all of your accounts were created on a data load, or you know all from one time, then that may not. I'm trying to figure out how to write a formula. Oh, sorry. I can't hear you, Steve. There you go.
I think somebody needs to be tucked in. So I might have to bail.
Oh, that's okay.
All right. Thank you so much for having me.
Steve, thank you very much. I appreciate all your time.
Oh, no problem at all. Take care.
Thanks, Steve.
I'm going to keep discussing that with people here in the room. So
So this, you reported this, is going to be available.
yeah, we put it on our YouTube channel. It's pretty much next day or two.
Excellent. Hey,
Sure,
wonderful
yeah.
meeting. It's great to meet all of you.
Yeah,
I'll see you next
great.
month.
Thanks for coming out. Welcome back. First one in like 3 years, 2-3 years. So yeah, so trying to figure out how to, if I look, you have to look at the data and find something that's roughly different and then make a selectable filter off of that. And then possibly get that indexed, added to the index fields, and that requires a call to Salesforce. But you'd almost have to go through and create a flow that touched every field and set that record, and that's a million records.
Yeah, but the very, I understand that you're trying to do the flow, but the same thing can be done in the batch and batch, right? Even if it's million records, you can run through it.
Everything can be done in Apex. The hack is trying to get without Apex. I know it's a developer group, but yeah, no, I wrote so many flows. Whenever I was, you're supposed to go flow first. You're supposed to try and solve the flows. I had a couple of clients that, oh yeah, we have like 700 accounts and we need a new email for every account once a month. Oh, no problem. Oh no, it's 700 group accounts. There's actually 2,000 accounts in the account table, but it's only like 700 that are active. Oh, well now I can't use a flow anymore. I have to go start over from scratch and write it in Apex. And then I started calling it, well, I'd make 2 copies of it. I'd schedule one to run at midnight and the other to run at midnight 05. And I started that tracking method. And then somebody showed me the event thing, and I merged them together. Now I can do infinite records and flows as long as the logic isn't more than 2,000 steps. So anyway, if you think of anything that pushes formulas into, all right, night, everybody. I think we're all heading out, and I've got a bunch of bags to fill up of stuff. So thank you all for coming.
Do you need any help?